From the Riptide Media Network studios and live on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game, it's time for Middays with Q. Now to your host, Rich Quinones.
12 o'clock straight up on a Wednesday edition of Middays with Q. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rich Quinones. Mi hermano Angel Martinez on the other side of glass, producing the show, as always, keeping us on the air and coming at you exclusively on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, on this Wednesday, the 26th of June, 2024. We are powered by our wonderful friends over at ION Tampa Bay, ION TV. We're also going to be doing some good work and partnerships with them, so keep it locked in. Good stuff from Pete Shepard earlier this morning. Some really good content. We got up and rolling on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. And speaking of the newest game in town, we got the NBA draft, right? And this is where, if you think about it, a little potpourri today, we'll go to about 1:30-ish. And then obviously I'll give you guys some good stuff with BYP later on my YouTube channel, which we're broadcasting live and on Broad Street South as well as X. Jonathan Marshall around 12:30, 12:35. But last night, now, I'm not going to get too high. I'm not going to get too giddy on the fact that the New York Knicks made a move. The New York Knicks traded for Mikal Bridges. And I think on the surface, Knicks fans will look at this and say, you gave up way too much. Well, there's a reason that they stockpiled all these draft picks years ago. It was for an opportunity last night where, believe it or not, the irony is you're trading with one of your crosstown rivals in the Brooklyn Nets. And I like the move. I think you've added another dimension now. If you are the Knicks, you've got a durable player. He can give you 20 plus a night. He can log a ton of minutes, although Tibbs is probably going to push him to the limits. Now, what do you do with OG? What do you do with Hartstein? But I think it makes the Eastern Conference a little more interesting. Am I going to sit here and wax poetic and tell you right now on the 26th of June at, what are we looking at? 12:03-ish, 12:02. As we started Wednesday's edition, Middays with Q, that the Boston Celtics are going to get a run for their money by the New York Knicks? No, absolutely not. I mean, the Celtics are still the team to beat. The betting public knows that. They're defending NBA champs. They breezed through the NBA finals. We know all this. But I think it puts pressure now on a team like the Philadelphia 76ers, because now you have to match wits. You have to figure out what you're going to do to be competitive, to stay competitive with a team like the New York Knicks. And you can ill afford to keep going backwards. You can't. And the NBA draft, two-night affair. We know it's going to be so long. We get it. We've been there. We've all been there. It is if you will, a long prospect, a long night. And you're dealing with, players that you're going to take a flyer on. We know how it's going to roll out the top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks. I think we can all agree. We have a semblance of what direction it's going to go. But then you look at the 76ers at 16, then the second round draft pick and what direction they might be going in. Are they going to figure out a way to get a complementary player for, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid? What are they going to do? I've seen these articles, trade Tobias Harris. He's a pending free agent. Why would you even want to do that? So interesting time in the NBA. We will get into it. Again, I'll get some of your thoughts. Do I think the Knicks now are going to be the top seed in the Eastern Conference? Absolutely not. I do believe they're a little more competitive. I do believe you have a missing piece now to kind of try to get over the hump or at least make an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. But the one thing, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, we hit on this yesterday. The NBA, it is a players-driven league. That's really where we're at. It's a players-driven league. So I don't know if a team like the Knicks or Cleveland or Orlando, which, was I guess you can say, an early participant to the party, right? That's a young team. They came out of nowhere. The 76ers, they have a lot of issues. The 76ers have some holes, let's be honest. Point being, Eastern Conference, again, right there for the taking for the Boston Celtics. So we'll get the draft. I'll give you my thoughts. We got some betting odds. We'll go through the top 5 to 10 with Jonathan Marshall around 12:30. I want to also get his thoughts on JJ Redick. now the new head coach of the Lakers. This is interesting because yesterday I brought it up, and I feel as though it was glossed over. But I mean, without belaboring the point, if you're JJ Redick and you're going to sit there at a press conference, you don't need to drop F-bombs. I mean, you're a Duke grad. Show a little class, show a little decorum. Just answer the questions professionally and just move on. So again, we'll get into that with Jonathan Marshall. Maybe sprinkle in a little WNBA as well, and we'll kind of go around the NBA with the coaching carousel. Then NFL wise, and by the way, horrible job yesterday with Q's picks. I mean, I apologize yesterday. We had a nice little run of 9-3, spit the bit yesterday, some bad shows on the diamond. We'll try to regroup around 1:20 before we get out of here, 1:30. Not a full 2 hours, but 1:30, plenty of time to get it in and plenty of time for you guys out there to also connect with us, 727-858-6650. You can tweet at us. You can call as well. Get the comments going. We're all here for the dialogue. The NFL. Everyone loves list. Everyone gets so enamored when it comes to list. We get so bent out of shape. I can't believe, how are we ranking these teams and these guys, and what are we doing? Where are the Eagles ranked? Where are the Dolphins ranked? Where are the Giants ranked? Where are the Bucks ranked? Where are the Cowboys ranked? Oh my God, it's just making me sick. Folks, we're going to have a little fun with the list, but I just want to preface this by saying, who the frick cares? Does it really bother you if your team is not top 5? Do you agree with the list? And you're probably like, well, why are you talking about it? Because I'm mocking it. Because everyone loves lists. That's what we do as sports fans. We run through the gamut. We text our buddies. We're out on a Saturday night. We're at the bar. We're having a couple pops, and we're like, hey, did you sit there? Did you see Sims's list? Did you see Florio's list? Did you see Prisco's list? Did you see the list on the Talking Heads? Did you see what Cowherd said? Did you see what ESPN said? Who cares? But I'm going to give you Q's list as I say all that, because I will give you cold, hard, and facts truth. Top 5 teams in the NFL. And there should be really no debate. There should really be no debate, because at the end of the day in the NFL, as I alluded to yesterday on Tuesday's show, there are a handful of very good teams. 2 to 3 really good teams, 1 great team, and the rest, it's mediocre. There's parity in the NFL. There's parity in the NBA. Hell, there's parity in the NHL. I gave you the odds yesterday for the Panthers at plus 900 to repeat. Are you kidding me? Then you got the Avalanche, you got the Hurricanes, 10-1, 12-1 respectively. There's parity across the board. Baseball, what do we always say? As fans, we're watching these games. You're only as good as the next day's pitcher. It's all about momentum. If you get to the postseason, if the bats go silent, you're in trouble. If you get to the postseason, if your starting pitching was a 1.31 ERA throughout the course of the Major League season, and all of a sudden the pitching goes cold, you can't find the strike zone. Look at Tampa Bay, historic start last season. What happened to them? Look at the Phillies with their offense. What happened to them? Look at the Yankees relying on the long ball. What happened to them? It's a war of attrition. It's a long season. But baseball, I think you can ride certain things and certain momentum. In the NBA, in the NFL, in the NHL, typically, really, when you think about it, the best teams always win, right? We've seen some upsets here and there. We have. But ultimately, it's always that best team, the better team, the team that was constructed the best way, the team that has the best coaching staff, the team that has the solid manager, the team that understands how to make adjustments. In the NFL, you got a couple of good teams. So we're going to get into that as well. And as I mentioned, 727-858-6650. The league itself, because we're creeping in July and we'll get to training camp and everyone's going to start to get giddy because everyone has their questions. Every team, right? We always have questions when it comes to all these teams. I mean, is Baker Mayfield going to live up to that contract? Is he finally going to be the face of a franchise with Tampa Bay? Is Tua going to pull out? Is Tua going to get paid? Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni. Hell, I haven't even brought up how in the world the Eagles are going to utilize a player like Saquon Barkley. I mean, think about that. I feel as though Saquon has kind of just been swept to the side.
No.
How bad are the Patriots going to be? Is it one more season in Denver for Sean Payton, right? If he can't turn it around, even though he's got a young quarterback. Dallas and Prescott and McCarthy, you already hear the rumblings that's going on in Big D with Dallas. Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy. It could be a long season. Everyone, let's not sleep on the Washington Commanders, right? Because they haven't made a lot of noise in the offseason. So typically the teams that are quiet in the offseason, those are the teams that you have to kind of watch out for. I mean, that's the NFL. That's really where we're at with the NFL. And I think that's one of the beauties of the NFL. And I think for tonight, when you look at, well, I should say the next 2 nights, when we look at the NBA draft, if you really haven't followed college, there are certain players that you look at, you say, hey, man, I've never even heard of these guys. That's why we're going to have Jonathan Marshall on at 12:30, because he knows these guys like the back of their hand. And I've got a couple questions I need to ask him when we start talking about the head coaching in the NBA and the fits in the NBA. And you look at a guy like JJ Redick, who's now going to take the reins over with the Los Angeles Lakers. Coaching matters. Some people say it doesn't, but it absolutely matters. So we got a little NBA on the table. We got the NFL. I promise you, I will rebound from a horrific segment of Q's picks. It's embarrassing. I mean, powered from my good friends over at Play It Again Sports, they might pull the trigger. They might pull the gun. They might leave me. It was embarrassing yesterday what I gave you on the diamond. I am going to step up, and we're going to try to give you some winners because, as they always like to say, we want winners. All right, we're just cranking it up. Cranking it up on a Wednesday edition of Middays with Q. Again, we are coming at you live on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, the game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. And yes, come football season, we will cover a lot of the Bucks, the Jags, and the Miami Dolphins. You can get in on the conversation, 727-858-6665. Myself, Angel Martinez on the other side of glass, Jonathan Marshall, and about 15 or so. You out there, I'll get to some Facebook comments. I'll get to some tweets at RichQ on Q. Comment, let your voice be heard. Get in on the conversation. As always, we are powered from our good friends over at ION TV. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today, I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Middays with Q. Here's Q.
The bumper, 15 past 12 o'clock hour. Do not forget, We'll take you up to about 1:30 today, and always appreciate everyone keeping us locked in. Tommy D on Facebook chimes in on one of my old posts, mentions he's tuning in, he's listening in. He said, Q, if you don't care about lists, why are you bringing them up? That's exactly why I'm bringing them up, Tommy D, because I don't care about them, and either should you. Let's be honest. Why do we get so bent out of shape? Seriously, why do we get so bent out of shape when it comes to lists? Because ultimately, they're all subjective. I think we can agree that there are 5 teams in the NFL that over the last 3, 4, 5 seasons, can we all agree these are the teams that have made the most noise, right? These are their teams that, for lack of a better term or for lack of a better word, they're consistently going to be in the conversation. Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City, the Eagles, San Francisco. I mean, that's pretty much it. You want to say Dallas, you want to go to that second, you want to even mention Detroit right now, right? But the NFL, it's such a cynical proposition that if you look at the AFC East, Buffalo and Miami both won 11-6. Miami Dolphins had a chance to avoid going to Kansas City. They lost that Sunday night game to close out against Buffalo. Buffalo had a bunch of special teams play. Josh Allen went off, and then Miami had no offense on the road against Kansas City. You look at the AFC North, every single solitary year. Lamar, MVP. They won 13-4, but yet, come playoff time, what happens? They spit the bid. You look at the AFC South, which is basically a weak division, but you're seeing a young team in the Houston Texans, DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud, they go 10-7. Then you got Jacksonville, 9-8. You got Indianapolis, 9-8. You got Tennessee rebuilding, 6-11. They're hoping they can be a 500 team. AFC West, consistently over the last decade, dominated, and rightfully so, by the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, you can't even panic if you're a Kansas City squad. A couple years ago, they were 4-5. They were plus 375 to win the AFC West. They reeled off 6 in a row, went to the Super Bowl, and won it. That's a great team. The NFC East, competitive, right? Well, if you think about it, the Giants and Washington have stunk. Dallas is always hit or miss because once they get in the playoffs, they fold. And then the Eagles started to have that ascend after they inserted Jalen Hurts as a starter. And then you add in the head coach, Nick Sirianni, you get to the Super Bowl, you bounce back, you get to the playoffs, you get bounced. Detroit on the ascend. Great players, good quarterback, good running game, aggressive head coach. Green Bay on the ascend. Tampa Bay, I don't know what to expect. The NFC South reminds me of the AFC South. It's a crapshoot. And then you have the NFC West, where San Francisco is clearly one of the best teams in the NFL year in and year out because they have it on both sides of the football. That's pretty much 5 teams. 5 teams right there. Okay? 5 teams. Joey D in Summers Point, New Jersey on Facebook, chiming in. Q, loving the new show and the style. Great stuff as always. You mentioned there's 5 to 6 teams. What about the second tier teams that typically make a run? Yeah, it's a good point because what happens is second tier teams, right? So second tier teams, we always talk about them. And in the NFL, I guess I would equate that to say Green Bay, Houston, Cleveland, but it was a mixed bag with the quarterback. Do we want to say Miami? Miami's not a great team. Miami's a good team. They put up a lot of points. Jacksonville, second tier, right? Again, the NFC South, it's just a crapshoot. NFC West, the Rams had a bounce back year, 10-7, but they went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago and won it. Cincinnati, I think Cincinnati's a very good team, but Cincinnati had a down year. Cincinnati had some issues with their quarterback getting injured, inconsistent play, a bad offensive line, even though they went to a Super Bowl and lost to the Rams a couple years ago. But yeah, that's you got the 4 or 5. It's an excellent point you bring up. You got the second tier, and then you got the really bad teams. The really bad teams, and you don't even need to be a diehard football fan to know that New England's a bad team. Tennessee's a bad team. The Chargers are hit or miss. People think because of Harbaugh, give them +3 more wins. The Giants are a bad team. Washington's a bad team. The Bears, even though they won 7 games, they've been a bad team for a long time. Carolina's a horrible team. Atlanta's in flux. Arizona's a bad team. That's the NFL. That's the NFL. That's the league that we watch every Sunday. That's the league for some of you guys. You'll throw some shekels, you'll throw some coin, you'll bet on some of these games. And that's why it makes it so difficult at times to bet on the NFL. Because depending upon if you're looking at some of these teams early on in the season, defenses are typically ahead of offenses when the season starts in the NFL. But then you also have to factor in short weeks, travel, Thursday night game, the injury report, banged up players. At times the sharps with the manipulation of lines, we've seen it. Are you catching a team going down? Are you leaning a team? Are you trying to profit off a team that's a bad team, i.e. Washington, the Giants, Atlanta, Carolina, Arizona? But then you also get some of those weeks where nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. Even the sharpest of sharp bettors, the odds makers, the bookies, the insiders, the talking heads, they don't even know. How many people thought Arizona would run for over 200 against? Seriously. How many? How many? How many people thought that the Green Bay Packers would come out and absolutely destroy the Dallas Cowboys? Not a lot of people. Not a lot of people. But that's the NFL. That's the league we live and die by because there's parity. We know there's a constant. We know there's 4 to 5 very good teams. And if you're lucky, maybe your squad plays competitive football, right? Maybe you're a New England fan. I think the Patriots, I'm sorry. I know we get a lot of Boston listeners and we appreciate it. Pete Shepard does a hell of a job Monday to Friday, 7 to 10 with the Pete Shepard Show. He's a Boston guy. I think New England has one of the most poorly constructed rosters and coaching staffs in the NFL. I think they're going to struggle mightily. And just to be fair, I also think my Giants are going to struggle mightily. And I think the head coach is on the hot seat. I think the quarterback's time is coming to an end. I think they're going to struggle. You just know when teams are going to be bad. And you also have this sense where, hey, these guys, they might, what was it in Major League, right? In the original Major League when the guys with the hard hat were sitting there and these guys ain't so effing bad, right? Or they were putting the team together and they're like, this guy's dead. We'll cross him off the list. So, we don't want that with your NFL team. Trust me, we don't want that with your NFL team. 22 past 12 o'clock hour. 7. Did you ever see that movie, Angel? Major League?
Oh, yeah. You kidding me? It's one of those movies you end up watching that.
Nope. Angel,
over
I
and
think
over
you
again.
got I can't hear you, pal. I think we might have to, as Tony Montana said, or as Carlito Brigante said, we might have to reload. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Nah, look at that.
Okay.
Unbelievable. I served him up, and then he was just nowhere to be found. This is what happens. He's behind the glass, waving his being dramatic theatrics. Can't hear me, can't see anything. Oh, wait, there it is. There it is. The incredible shrinking Hermano. He's loading up. That was a great movie, Major League. They need to stop messing with the classics, though. They need to stop. Hey, the incredible shrinking Hermano. Are you there now?
Yeah, I'm here.
So did you ever see original Major League?
Yeah. Yep. It's one of those movies you get into watching over and over again because it never gets old. For those, rephrase. For those who appreciate certain movies with certain sports, they would definitely like to get an appreciation of it. But it's a classic. I think it probably gets more eyeballs. What was the other one? There's No Crying in Baseball. But
League of Their Own.
There you go. I mean, and that, in its own right too, that has a lot of viewers or people who watch the movie as well. But I think Major League is by far.
Yeah, they need to stop messing with the classics, though. I didn't need to see a Coming to America 2. I don't need to see another White Man Can't Jump. Listen, Beverly Hills Cop 4? What are we chasing, arthritis? Come on, stop.
Yeah, pretty much.
I can't have that. But would you agree or disagree with my point with the NFL when we talk about top heavy teams, 4 to 5 really good competitive teams. And then it's just a crapshoot, right? I think a lot of it has to do with, hits and misses when it comes to the NFL draft. I think it has to do with coaching, guys not being prepared. But I would say 4 or 5 teams. I gave you them. So I ask you right now, you tell me great or good.
All right.
Okay. Buffalo Bills.
Good.
Okay. Baltimore Ravens.
Great.
Houston Texans.
Getting to be great.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Good.
Good or great?
You're going to get them great.
Dallas Cowboys.
Bad.
Philadelphia Eagles.
Good.
Detroit Lions.
Good. Also getting to be great.
All right. San Francisco.
Gotta give them great.
All right. So you got basically 2 plus. You're a little more tougher grader than I am. The point being, you've got that tier, right? So everyone gets so bad out of shape. So let me get to this. So these are power rankings. Everyone gets crazy over power rankings, power rankings, power rankings, power rankings. Here we go. Power rankings. Oh my goodness. What are we doing? We can't have power rankings. Where's my squad? I can't believe they're at the bottom of the barrel.
Exactly.
So this is from PFT, my guy, Rip and Read, Mike Florio. So he's got the Chiefs at number 1. He's got the 49ers at number 2, the Lions at number 3, the Ravens. Oh, let me close you out. Sorry there, Mike. He's got the Chiefs at number 1, 49ers at 2, Lions at 3, Ravens at 4, the Eagles at 5. Like, that's pretty accurate. I really don't see an issue with that.
No, I can't disagree.
Okay. He's got the Packers at 6, the Bills at 7, Cincinnati at 8. He's got Tampa, your Buccaneers, at 9.
Oh,
the Texans.
Slow down. Not my Buccaneers.
The Texans at 10. He doesn't even have the Dolphins in the top 10. So he's got Packers, Bills, Cincy, the Bucks, Texans. So we talk about teams ascending, Tampa, Houston. Now all of a sudden, boom, because they're coming off one good year. I think Houston has more of an upside than Tampa does, only because you got a younger quarterback in CJ Stroud over Baker Mayfield, who, by the way, I think is a gamer. But point being is, this is what happens in the NFL. You have a good season, right away, we stick you in the top 10. And I think that's where people have to be careful when you look at these lists. And when people look at these lists right away, they want to equate it to how they're gambling on some of these games or how they're betting on some of these games. I mean, you can go through and look at New England. New England might not get a win in their first 8 games. New England might not be favored until, say, week 9, 10. They might be favored in 1 game out of their first 8 or 9. But if you have them on a list, and let's just say, for argument's sake, you have them at, well, he's got them at 31, but let's just say you had them at 22, you might be more inclined to think they might be better than they really are. That's kind of my point of lists don't matter. They don't. And I talk about this a lot on BYP, Back Your Play. Lists do not matter. You can't go by what I'm throwing out there. You can't go by what I'm saying. You can't look at top to bottom. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's the NBA. I don't care if it's Major League Baseball, the NHL, the NFL. It doesn't matter. It's all subjective. It's all subjective. And in these leagues, you got a half of top heavy teams, and then everyone else is in the middle of the friggin' pack. Lists do not matter. Grocery list, yes. Laundry list, yes. A date night list, yes. But these sports lists and a movie list, they matter.
There's a date night list?
Well, I mean, for some people. All right. 12:30, midway through hour number 1 on a Wednesday edition of Middays with Q, right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Do not forget, we are powered by Ion Tampa Bay. And by the way, it looks like they did clean up that accident over in Pinellas Park. There was a bicycle involved in a crash. That was off Belcher Road and 78th Avenue North. So again, if you guys are looking for updated news, traffic, weather alerts. They keep an eye on Tampa Bay. They break news along with photos and videos. FAA licensed drone pilot and notary at Eye on TV. Eye on TV. All right, 12:30 quickie timeout. Little NBA talk with my guy, Jonathan Marshall, on the other side.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Call or text the show at 727-858-6650. Now, back to Q.
All right, 12:35 on a Wednesday edition Middays. We're coming at you on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game. Rich Quinones here. Me, Armando Angel Martinez behind the glass. Producing the show, keeping us on the air, powered by Eye on TV. What is that? Is that a Chicago Bulls hat? Is that a Celtics hat? That's not a Sixers hat. Is that
Syracuse?
Oh, okay. Jonathan Marshall from WMUR rocking the Cuse, the orange. I mean, what am I going to see? Hakeem Warwick jersey in the background or what?
I got a Pearl Washington and I got a Melo jersey. So, shout out to my orange, man.
Listen, I'll tell you this. Back in the heyday, I still have the SI of my guy, Bill Wellington, blocking Earl the Pearl Washington in St. John's one.
Wow.
Yeah. Bill Wellington. Yeah, that's right. Not Billy Poltz, the big whopper that played at St. John's, but Bill Wellington. All those nice little cup of coffee winning championships with the Bulls, if you remember. So, all right, listen, speaking of the Bulls, their rival, the New York Knicks, my Knicks make a move last night. Mikal Bridges, I know you were texting me. I was a little giddy. My friends were trying to break in my stones, 5 first-round picks. And I said, look, you stockpile picks.
Yeah.
This is kind of what they've done over the last several years. And I mentioned this. Bridges is durable. He'll give you 20-plus. He's a mid-range specialist. He can play off the ball. He fits in Tibbs' system. I don't know, is Tibbs going to test his human durability, right? The kid never misses minutes. What do we got? Villanova 5 now, whatever, going higher, Jay Wright if you wanted to. But point being, I like the move. I'm not going to be negative about the move. Does it put the Knicks over the top against the Boston Celtics? No, it doesn't. Does it make the Eastern Conference a little more competitive from a Knicks standpoint? And if they can kind of make that next step or that next progression go deeper into the playoffs? Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get into where they go from here, but initial thoughts and reactions to that trade. And by the way, I was a little shocked because think about it. Brooklyn is the little brother, and you rarely see those types of trades.
Yeah, so multiple thoughts, Q. First off, kudos to your Knicks continuing to prove that they've sort of learned how to build a basketball team, a winning situation over there in New York, right? And so when people talk about the first-round picks, in reality, most first-round picks people are going to forget about. We talk about this year's draft, last year's draft. Most people can't remember. Even in quote unquote a strong draft,
that's right.
Later first round picks, people aren't even going to realize who those picks came to be, right? And so for the Knicks, you got to capitalize on this moment. The excitement that they brought to that city, to Knicks fans everywhere, to MSG. Okay, how do we get better? We see that the Celtics are the cream of the crop in the NBA. That is our main competition. How do we get better? Because standing pat, it's not going to work. And so, what other way outside of free agency was this team going to get better? They had to get this done. And I salute them. If you guys bring back OG as well, to me, you're the second best team in the Eastern Conference. Not only do these guys have defensively the capabilities to at least contain a Jason Tatum, a Jalen Brown, and what the Celtics bring, but also Dante DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson. We talk about Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, the Villanova guys. That chemistry is important. I think that will even add more of a excitement and energy to that team. And secondly, this is all the 76ers' fault. You flash back to 2018, they had Mikal Bridges. They traded him for Zaire Smith. Later in the first round, this isn't talked about enough. Jalen Brunson's still on the board. You go with Landry Shamet. And so your incompetence on draft night in 2018 led to the Knicks having not only Brunson, but Bridges. So everything that's happening right now, the Sixers deserve.
So interesting you brought that up. The irony, right? Mm-hmm. You mentioned that draft, and I actually posted out and tweeted out. I think I posted out on Facebook too to get a little rise out of some of the 76er faithful. The irony is that guess who was the GM at that moment?
Refresh my memory. Who was the GM that year?
It was the de facto GM of Brett Brown. Why? Because of the BC burner account.
That's right.
So Brett Brown, quote, AKA, we're going to go stall hunting, right? We got to go stall hunting. We're going to bring in Stars to Philadelphia. We're going to go stall hunting. I like this kid Zaire. He reminds me of Kawhi Leonard.
I remember that quote. That pissed me off. It was so disrespectful. So disrespectful.
And the kid has to deal with all these injuries, and he only plays in 13 games.
For you to have Villanova guys right in your backyard competing for championships.
They were overlooked. They were overlooked.
All three.
I'm going to tell you why, because a lot of times when you draft a hometown hero, sometimes it blows up in your face. And to your point, it just shows how clueless that regime was. And then ultimately, right, to compare him to Kawhi is utterly ridiculous. Now, the kid had problems. He had some injuries. I think, I don't know if it was mono or got sick and he lost weight. And it never panned out. It's not his fault. It never panned out. But to your point, and Brett Brown turned around and apologized to Bridges' mother, right? I mean, think about that because you're almost, quote, slighting the kid. Now, you go back to this. OG or Hartstein. Hartstein, I think, is rep by CAA. And I just want to be clear with this. And I posted this out as well because this puts a little perspective on why I don't think he's coming back. So they're going to, as you mentioned, they're going to try to re-sign OG. Okay. Yeah. But now you're trying to afford to re-sign Hartstein. So they can only offer him up to a 4-year deal worth $72 million. And I forgot about this. They hold his early bird rights, Larry Bird rights. So I mean, if you had your choice, is it OG or is it Hartstein?
It has to be OG. I think for me, Hartenstein he was great for you guys, right? Let's not get it twisted.
Oh, fantastic.
He's not a starter on a championship team. Like he can be replaced. I'm not into overpaying for, I'm not into paying for
a grinder
find anywhere else, right?
A grinder. Yep.
And I prefer Mitchell Robinson as a player, right? He'll come back from injury. Like, to me, it's like, like who are you willing to overpay for Hartenstein versus trusting that Mitchell Robinson comes back from his injury? I think Mitchell can provide just as much energy in what he did before the injury, right? And so by having an OG and Mikal Bridges, that's what makes you special, right? The Mikal Bridges deal gets even better by teaming him up with OG because once again, you're trying to face off against the Boston Celtics and that offense and how they spread everybody out. How do you compete against that? And this is the best route for me by teaming up OG and Mikal on the wing.
Yeah, let's get into the Sixers for a moment. So 1240 on a Wednesday edition of Middays with Q, right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Angel Martinez behind the glass, Jonathan Marshall, WMUR, our Hoops Insider. And oh, by the way, we'll be contributing some content. I know Angel's very excited about that. We're happy to have you on board contributing your pod with your brother as well. Marshall time. So we look forward to that NBA insight and analysis. That's going to be fantastic, but we're always happy to get you on for a couple moments. So the 76ers. So you look at the 76ers right now, 16th pick, 41st pick, second round. I was reading an article and I'm glad my buddy pointed out and called it out. Why would you want to package Tobias Harris when he's a free agent? He's an impending free agent. Like, let's be honest. If you looked at his numbers, and I am not defending Tobias Harris, his 5 years, 180, he did not live up to that contract. He didn't. On the surface, 17-6, you say he's a solid player. But he had the Ben Simmons-ish in the playoffs, right? He was so passive against the Knicks, and then he had the goose egg in the one game. That pretty much was it. I mean, it's 5 years, $180. You got Utah's interest in him. You got Detroit's interest in him. Now, here's the thing. I know you're laughing. If you're Detroit, here's my rationale. You want to give a player to, you're not going to build with Tobias Harris at 31, but you're trying to show this kid Cunningham, we're trying to get you a player here or there. He's not in the long-term future. But with that being said, Tobias Harris will not be a Philadelphia 76ers. Why would he even entertain the thought of, let's package him in a deal?
Wash your hands clean of Tobias Harris. I feel like we've had the same conversation about Tobias since he signed that contract, right? It's interesting. Tobias, you look at his numbers on the surface, what's the criticisms? Like, why are people so hard on him, right?
Right.
But when you really watch those games in certain moments, and we saw it in the playoffs this year, right? In certain moments when you need him to step up, he's nowhere to be found, right? You got Joel Embiid, check. Maxey, check. Tobias Harris as the third guy, there's something that you have to do as well when Joel may not be available, when Maxey may not be at his best. The third guy is exactly there for that reason, to step up when you're needed to. And too many times, he's been hesitant. He's been timid mentally. He hasn't been locked in. Yep. He's missing layups. He's just outside of that as a basketball player. I've had a hard time finding what redeeming qualities he's presented on the basketball court. He's not hustling. He's not a lockdown defender. He can't really shoot it. He's not a knockdown shooter. Off the dribble, he's not explosive. So what, as a third option on the championship team,
well, he's not. That's the problem.
He's not that.
Yeah.
So for Utah and Detroit, as a veteran who's been in the league, you want a veteran presence, have a ball.
Yeah, and a perfect example, Boston with the 1-2 punch of Tatum and Brown, but you had that third option, even though he was banged up in KP and Porzingis. Not to mention,
you have Drew Holiday and Derek White.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right. A D2 player, not to mention those guys that stepped up. So here's a thought. So Angel and I discussed this yesterday, and more or less, I don't want to say contrarian and or conspiracy, but do they keep the first round draft pick, number one, because it's right outside the lottery? That's my first question. Well, let me hear your thoughts on that.
It's honestly what I've been hearing and seeing. I kind of feel like they're going to keep it tonight. I can see them keeping it. I really do. But you just never know on draft night, right? I still think a lot of teams are going to want to wait and see how things shake out over the next few days. You still have the free agency period that opens up. So I can see them keeping the pick right now.
All right. Hey, Gas Pump Guy. Thank you. I love that, by the way, nickname. Gas Pump Guy. Just pumping it, baby. Go ahead.
Gas Pump Guy.
Yeah. Hey, GP.
They're important.
They get you where you need to go. Exactly. Here's the outside the box. Come on, Q. What are we doing here? So you mentioned this a week or two ago on Back Your Play on BYP, my other pod, and I think you might have mentioned it on Middays with Q. Teams just don't, select a player to select a player.
Right.
Okay. So just let me take you down the path for a minute, because
Here we go.
We just filled up some gas in the car. We're going for a nice little drive down 95, down the boulevard.
Yeah, I think I might have an idea where
we're going star hunting right now. What if you dangle the carrot and you think you have an opportunity to get LeBron.
Don't say it. Oh,
and
no.
at 41, you draft his kid. And I'm going to tell you why, because there will be a team that has that. I got crushed when I mentioned it, and that's okay. I don't mind.
I knew where you were taking it.
Because you have to actually throw it out there. As ludicrous as it sounds, it's almost as bad as some of the local talking heads saying a couple years ago, hey, LeBron was checking out schools in Philly. He's signing with the Sixers.
Right.
Okay. Would that just be very Sixter-esh? Because you know what teams – listen, you draft at that spot, let's be honest, that is a project pick. That is does he have upside pick?
Right.
So put that together, attach the name and who his father is, and dangle the carrot. What say you?
Would it shock me if a team did that just to see how much LeBron wants to play with his son? It wouldn't shock me, right? But would LeBron leave LA? Not about the Lakers. Think about why he went to LA in the first place. Because if he wanted to win multiple championships, he would have picked Philly in the first place, right? To team up with Embiid and Maxey. You know what I mean? So I have a hard time seeing him uproot his family to come to Philly.
So my guy Steve is chiming in. He's a hoops junkie. I defer to him a lot when it comes to basketball talk. A great basketball mind, need to rebuild, shock the world and trade Embiid. Did we not mention this?
See,
and we got both. I got hammered for even insinuating, we said this, 2 years ago?
We've been saying it. But here's the thing, though. The Celtics aren't going anywhere. Giannis isn't. As long as Milwaukee has Giannis, they'll have a chance. The Knicks.
Yeah, so your rationale is you hold on to Embiid because you think you can compete to some extent. You're not getting past the second round. You're not getting the Eastern Conference Finals.
My rationale is this. How are you competing against those 2-3 teams over the next couple of years?
But that's the whole point. You're not. But you're not. Rebuild. Start it over.
But in reality, Q, this is sports. Pro sports at that. It's a business. We got to have Joel Embiid. We got to fill these seats out. We got to give fans false hope. It's false hope at this point, right? We're seeing the Knicks make these moves. Paul George is a pipe dream at this point, it's looking like. Who are you getting? Is Brandon Ingram going to be enough?
No.
You still have a whole roster to fill out. Most of this roster is hitting free agency. So how are you filling this roster out to compete with the Celtics, with the Bucks, with the Knicks? Who knows what the Pacers do to get better this offseason, right? Like, there's the Magic. They're young. Like, who knows in the next 2 years where this team is?
Do you believe Joel Embiid, when healthy and engaged on the floor, is a, quote, generational talent, a generational player?
I think generational player. Yes, I think he's one of the best players of our generation, yes.
Okay. Was Iverson generational talent?
I'm biased, yes.
That's fine. Hey, that's okay. I'll let it slide on a Wednesday. I know you're an AI guy.
Yeah.
Was Barkley a generational talent?
That's a tough one for me.
Hall of Famer, face of the franchise.
Hall of Famer, for sure, of course.
So I can't even say Dr. J because let's be honest, his best days, right, ABA, and then later on in his career, they made the move from Moses, and here you go, right, faux. So Charles, AI, and Embiid.
Yeah.
So think about those three players that we would say generational talent, faces of the franchise, build around, we're going to win. Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, Allen Iverson dragged the likes of, my goodness, the Aaron McKees, the Eric Snows, right, into the finals.
Yeah.
Right. Charles never did that. He had to go to Phoenix.
Right.
And Embiid, these guys can't even get to an Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah. At a certain point, Q, you have to make a decision, right? Or else in the next 2 years, you're going to be looking at Joel Embiid. He's older. His body continues to fail him. And you still haven't won a championship. As a franchise, where do you want to be in 2 years?
Yeah.
And it could be, I said it before and I'll say it again, in 2 years, it could get dark for this franchise quickly.
You hear that, Angel?
Daryl Morey's on the clock. He has to work some magic. I don't know what it is that he'll do, but LeBron's not coming here.
No.
Giannis isn't coming.
No.
Like, Kevin Durant isn't coming. Steph Curry isn't coming.
No. Zaire Smith is not walking through that door.
Was this? Did I not get the memo today? All of a sudden, we just pick on the Sixers day.
It's not pick on. We're just
I know it's not. Even though it's your last day here, but it's okay. You know, we understand.
listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. The little incredible shrinking hermano over there in the little box. And no, we're just listen.
He's on the Knicks side right now.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, I love how everyone's got to piss on what the Knicks do because they finally do something and right away, and yet I have to sit here. I have to defend the move. Right. That's number one. And then number two is, well, you know what? We'll get to a couple more. We got to get into the draft.
Of course.
We have to get into JJ Redick as well.
Yeah.
So just keep it locked in. Stay with us. Go ahead, Angel.
One thing is, you guys are bringing up valid points as far as they did have. Sixers had Villanova in their backyard. They really had him and chose to ignore it. I don't know why in the world they chose to do so. But they did. And that's shame on the Sixers because they got to build themselves up a team almost like the Knicks right now. I'm not going to go that crazy as far as, give you more kudos there to York Knicks, but, whatever's.
Angel, as a Sixers supporter, like I first started really watching the Sixers in AI's rookie year in 96. And so we've seen the dark times, right? And so I get jealous of these competent front offices who have actually developed and they've evaluated talent the right way. The Sixers have proven over and over again, they just haven't been able to do that. And to me, that's why they're in the spot that they're in now. I look at the future. I don't know how it looks post Embiid. Like, it's tough to see.
They spit the bit when they decided, this whole, the process and tank this. I mean, it was light years ago. Mm-hmm. Remember a center by the name of Jahlil Okafor?
Yeah.
He dropped the jersey on the ground. He doesn't want to play in Philadelphia. And I remember I interviewed him after he got drafted, and he was kind of annoyed by that, but it just didn't pan out.
Yeah.
Like picks don't pan out in the NBA, or they don't pan out the first time around, i.e. Porzingis.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And now look at him, right? Flourishing. And it helps that you have a 1-2 punch as well. All right, 150, quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll get into the draft. I have to get Jonathan's thoughts on JJ Redick, the over and under, and how long that marriage is going to last, him and the Lakers and LeBron. Keep it locked in Wednesday edition, Middays with Q, right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, and of course, powered by Eye on TV.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have any body to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
Welcome back to Middays with Q. Here's Q.
Yeah, there he is, bumper guy. I refer to him as bumper guy. In and out. Bumper music. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Bumper guy. Go ahead, Angel. I know you have something. You have a wise ass comment to make. Fast approaching 1 o'clock hour. It's all about the liners, man. It is all about, I'm telling you, the liners make or break the programming. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, he's got. No. Even though in that commercial, she was definitely a smoke show. All right, fast approaching the 1 o'clock hour. All right, let's get back to it. John and Marshall, kind enough to join us. You guys can tweet at me at Rich Q on Q. We're posting on Facebook as well, powered by ION TV. I'm coming at you on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. I got to ask you, JJ Redick. So I think I tweeted at you or I texted you, no podcast. We kind of knew that. But listen, you went to Duke, man. You're obviously a well-spoken guy. You're intelligent. You're dropping F-bombs at the press conference. It's like, what are we doing? I mean, you're about to become, you are the newest head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And I don't know. And look, we curse at times, right? But in a situation like that, you just almost come off as just unintelligent, not well thought out. And I thought it was kind of a weak look. And I'm telling you, if anything, when they spit the bit and he lasts a season plus, maybe 2, they'll revert back to that press conference. All you had to do is just answer the questions. Look, I understand people are going to question my lack of experience. I feel pretty confident with the roster we have. I'm putting together a good coaching staff. I'm ready to come in and work. And that's it.
You got to understand, he's fresh off the media wave, right?
So what?
So he isn't in that
podcast mode. He's in podcast mode?
That's what he's been, right? And so he still hasn't fully transitioned into that mindset of being a head coach in a professional league. Like, it's a different mind state, right? Like, it's a different mind state as far as how you address the media, how you address your players, how you react on social media. So it'll be interesting to see not only the X's and O's and how he handles that, but how he handles the media coming from being a part of the media, right? That'll be another element to JJ. How often will he listen to what's being said on talk radio and on TV? How often?
Well, if that's an indication, he's not lasting 40 games.
And that's the thing. That's the trouble of, not only has he not been a head coach at any high school, college, or pro level, right? He's coming straight from the media booth in the podcast world. And so that's another adjustment that I think people need to pay attention to. And well, it'll be interesting to see. I'm having my popcorn ready. The Lakers have been a comedy show for the last couple of years, and so I'm excited to see how this goes. I am.
Yeah, I mean, he's out there talking like he's coaching the the men's league in the YMCA on a Saturday friggin' afternoon, right?
Speaking of that team, Q, you have your head coach, but for me, the roster is not a championship team anyway. And so you can have JJ Redick, James Borrego, whoever you wanted to bring in there, that roster still has to be situated because it's not a serious roster in the Western Conference.
Kevin just chimed in. He hit me up. All I know is, Q, the Rockets better not get Kevin Durant, leave him where he's at. What do you got, Angel?
So, quick question here for Jonathan. As you guys are talking about the Lakers here, which I, again, don't care about LA. Sorry, not a fan. Just like not a fan of the Knicks. Either way, but nonetheless, Jonathan, there's no way in the world. JJ Redick mentioned in his presser that LeBron had nothing to do with his hiring.
I find that hard to believe.
Right.
Hard to believe. As closely as they've been in work, you see this guy every week recording your podcast. There's no way that there's this conversation about the job opening. Are you kidding me?
He was probably texting him while he was sitting up there getting ready to answer a question.
But of course, these are things that you can't say because it's already been out there. LeBron has nothing to do. Like, you have to stay on line with what the company line is. You got to.
Bingo.
That's what it is. It's a business. Like, they operate like any other business. This is the company line, and we're going to stick to it. But we're not naive.
Yeah, it's a really good point you bring up too, Angel. Because I agree with you. I mean, LeBron is running that team. You really believe or I can't believe for 1 minute that any move he's thinking about making, it's not going to get run. LeBron James is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And typically what happens, it'll implode. Eventually it'll run its course. You had some success, right? And then it implodes and you go your separate way. So I mentioned this in the beginning of the opening monologue. I was like, listen, we got to get Jonathan on because even if you watch the NBA and you are interested in the NBA draft, it's not like back in the day where you would get 10 draft picks all coming out of college. It's now international flavor, right? So you look at the Hawks, the Wizards, Houston, the Spurs at number 4, and then Detroit at number 5. Um, I think it's going to play to form. I see the kid, Archer. If again, you know how I butcher names. The kid, Zachariah, I think he goes first. I think the kid Star goes second. The kid from Kentucky, Shepherd, I believe goes to Houston. So don't smile when I butcher the names. So give me your thoughts first, 1, 2, 3 in the draft.
Yeah, I think 1-2 is pretty set. Obviously, the news with Alex Sarr not working out for the Hawks, that pretty much puts him at number 2. Ricochet at number 1 seems like
Ricochet, and I
Ricochet.
come up with now. Is that Parlez-vous français?
Yes.
Yeah, because see, when Victor and I still only call him
we gotta work on it before the season starts.
I feel like poor friggin' Mad Dog Russo when he's just crushing name. For years I couldn't say Giannis. For some reason I would just say GA.
Wow.
Somebody was like, "Yeah, what do you think of this Antetokounmpo?" And I'm like, "What? Who? Giannis?"
Look, it took me a while to get Ricochet's name right. I think I got it right.
How the hell did I come up with research?
You were fighting through it, Q. You were fighting through it.
And I give you credit because you just allowed me.
Listen, you fought through it.
All right, so we got the French kid going to number 1.
Alex Sarr, number 2.
Yeah.
After that, Q, I mean, who knows if Houston may make a deal to move back? There's rumors about Memphis and Houston. Maybe they make a deal. I know Donovan Clingan, the big man from UConn, he might be somebody who is gaining traction. There was even talks about possibly Atlanta picking him number 1. So to me, this year's draft is honestly, most drafts outside of the top 3, top 5 are usually unpredictable. But this year's draft, honestly, from number 1 down, is really unpredictable. And it is that way because there isn't the big name. There isn't a Wemby, right? There isn't a Scoot Henderson, a Chet Holmgren this year, right? There isn't a Zion or a Ja, Luka, a Trae Young. There are guys who nobody has projected out to be a franchise guy, but could be really solid players. And I really look, as much as criticism this class has faced, I actually like this draft. Not in the sense of the star power, but I feel like there's value. There's value in a Reed Shepherd. There's value in a Devin Carter. There's value. I love Dalton Connect from Tennessee. And so I look at a team like San Antonio with picks 4 and 8. They can make out really well.
They need a guard. They need a guard. San Antonio needs a guard.
Yeah. And so there's guys out there, Rob Dillingham. Like, there are solid players in this draft and guys that may slide down the draft, like a Ron Holland, Terrence Shannon Jr., who may go late in the first round. There are names that I think will be really solid in this draft class. So it's going to be fun to see how this all plays out.
1 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. And of course, this is Middays with Q coming at you live on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, part of Broad Street South and powered by Ion TV. I'm getting hammered with my butchering of the name. What are we going to get to a point where when you look at these lottery picks, eventually they're all going to be international European players, international flavor?
Yeah. We've been seeing this for some time now, right? Like, this has been brewing for some time now, right? It's a global game now. And as the game, and, one thing we notice about these overseas players that they start from a young age professionally wise, right? So they're being trained to different situation that they're coming from, right? And so you're looking at the scouts now, they're looking at these guys who have been playing pro since 14 and 15 versus the college game where some guys may not be as refined or experienced. They may need some time to develop. I wouldn't be shocked if we start to see more and more, if we see a top 10 mock draft full of overseas guys. Next year's draft may be different though. That draft it's expected to be really good with a few college guys as well. But just the way that the overseas guys, the international players have been trained and brought up, it's not a surprise at all.
Are these, in your estimation, the top 3, 4, 5. I mean, we talk impact players. I mean, think about it. How do you pronounce his name?
Ricochet.
Ricochet. I watched a little bit of the kid.
Yeah.
So, you look at two-way, both ends of the floor. It seems
Yeah.
as though these top 4 or 5 defense, right? Star plays defense. The kid Shepard, young sharpshooter. The kid Castle, UConn guard. I mean, that pretty much tells you all you need to know. When you look at these guys, including Ricochet, if I got that one finally correct, there we go. Let's just bookmark it. We'll rack it. Impact, like franchise changing, franchise altering,
right?
Players.
On face value, it's hard to tell right now, right? Like, to me, I think Alex Sars should be the top pick, but of course, if he's not working out for you, then that's a decision that you have to make. Sar defensively can be special. Like, he pops out to me defensively. Offensively, there are some things he has to work on and add to his game, but I think there's something there. I've seen enough from Sar offensively that, okay, it's not an empty slate. There can be something there. With Ricochet, I see where the intrigue is as a two-way player, but once again, he is far from a finished product, and I don't see elite skill set personally. I don't see an elite skill set either way. It's funny. There was one credible national media outlet that compared him. It said shades of Harrison Barnes and Tobias Harris. And so that tells you all you need to know about how they view, because he's projected to be the top pick, and they're saying he's comparable to Tobias Harris and Harrison Barnes, which contract-wise, you're going to make well. Salute. Like, you're going to make a lot of money.
Let me ask you a question. If I'm so you would say you have to be a good player to be in the NBA. You have to play you have to be at a certain level, even though sometimes we might be critical and mock some of these players. But to make it to the NBA, even to have a cup of coffee, you have to be a damn good player.
Of course.
So is 17-8 any other player? We're looking at that saying he's solid. But what we tend to do as media and as fans alike, we attach the contract to the production on the floor, on the ice, on the diamond, on the field. And if it doesn't match, so when someone's comparing and saying Barnes and Harris, I just think Harris is he doesn't have it, the right type of dog in him.
Right.
But he's a skilled player. He just never lived up to the contract. So I guess my point is, when you hear that comparison, do you say, oh, does that scare you? Or, well, you don't know the makeup of the kid, the ticker, his want, commitment.
It's funny on face value, right? When you first look at it, because it's the top pick we're talking about. But if he's putting for most of these young guys, and I think people need to understand, for most players that enter this league, fit and situation matters. Yeah. If you're not in an environment that's going to foster development, then you have no chance.
Right.
And so I think people overvalue the lottery pick, because you can go back the last 10 years and look at the top 10. Most of those guys aren't franchise players. I mean, Kawhi Leonard wasn't a top 5 pick. SGA was not a top 5 pick.
Yep.
Like, there are guys that we can pinpoint right now. Jalen Brunson obviously was a second-round pick, right? And so I think Steph Curry, the Timberwolves drafted Johnny Flynn and Ricky Rubio back-to-back before and Steph Curry.
Oh, Rubio. Stop.
So Hasheem Thabeet went number 2 to the Grizzlies. Yep. And so Mo Bamba was a top 10 pick. And so I think people overvalue a lottery pick. They are important because most of the stars that we have today are lottery picks, right? We understand this, but in every draft class, there's going to be guys that slide there, and there's going to be guys that are picked at Dante Exum, perfect example, right? He was a top 5 pick years ago, right? And he's just now finding his spot in the league as a bench player. And so I think we got to understand that not all lottery picks are equal, but if a guy can find a right situation, like an Andrew Wiggins, is he a failure?
Yep.
Considering where he was drafted, but he's a champion.
Yeah,
he was the second best player on that Warriors team when they beat the Celtics.
Yeah, no,
I mean, he lived up to for that one. He lived up to what he was supposed to be for the Warriors for that.
Well, okay, so you bring up a good point. Like, if you go back to even 2007, Greg Oden, injuries,
got hurt.
Derrick Rose was an MVP, but is he a Hall of Fame player?
Not at this point, no.
Blake Griffin, Hall of Fame player?
No.
John Wall, great scorer, Hall of Fame player?
No.
Okay. Kyrie, Hall of Fame player?
Right.
Anthony Davis?
He turned out to be really good.
Anthony Bennett?
No.
Wiggins, Towns, Simmons, Fultz,
Yeah.
Ayton, Williamson.
Yeah.
Right?
Andre Ayton was picked ahead of Luka and Trae Young.
Yeah.
So people got to realize, lottery, we're going to get a cornerstone. It doesn't always work out like that. You may get a guy who's perfect as a number 2 or a number 3 in the lottery, and this year's draft is going to show that, I think. Like you can't.
If you have a miss in the lottery, and again, 10 minutes, 10 past the 1 o'clock hour on Wednesday edition, Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here, Angel Martinez behind the glass. We are powered by ION TB, and of course, coming at you live on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, where we not only talk what's going on in Florida, but obviously national up and down the East Coast and the West Coast. Jonathan Marshall, kind enough to join us. WMUR will provide some content, him and his brother, with his Marshall Time pod on our network. We're happy to have him, excited. When you look at these hit or misses, in the NFL, you build a franchise around what position?
It's the quarterback.
Okay. It's always under the microscope. So once you miss, that sets your franchise back 3 to 5 years, we'll say.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In the NBA, if you miss on a lottery pick, how far down the totem pole, how deep are you buried? Does it take time to regroup? Because I feel as though you can be in that purgatory-ish 8th seed back in the day where you'll win your 43, 44, 45 games. You're not great enough to advance, but you're not bad enough to get a top 10 pick. So when you miss on these lottery picks, in your experience, how far back is a franchise set?
I think one miss won't hurt you as much as back-to-back misses, right? Obviously, that Minnesota example, I think that hurt that franchise. If you bring in a Steph Curry, how differently are the Timberwolves back then, right? But the situation may be already so bad that you're already a few years away anyway. Case in point, Detroit, right? Kate Cunningham is a really good player. You can say that was a hit, but they're still trying to figure things out. They have Jay and Ivy. They have, there are some talented young guys that they still have to develop. And so given the situation from some franchises, no matter what you do, even if you make a quote unquote hit, you still need some time to develop. And so unless you're getting like a generational talent, like a Wemby is going to fast forward the Spurs, a John Morant fast forward the Grizzlies. Like there are certain generational talents that are just going to, okay, we're ahead of schedule. But if you're on the lottery, more oftentimes than not, you're a few years away from contending anyway. And so that's how I see it.
Yeah. You cover the Celtics, still the favorite to repeat. Denver's right up there. OKC. We talk about the league being very top heavy, saturated, right? We'll talk about this down the road. I'm sure you'll talk about it on the pod, but as far as the draft, are we going to see oh my God, I can't believe they just traded this pick, or what are they doing? I mean, do you think everything kind of will play out to form?
Yeah, I can see a trade happening. Like there's a lot of motion with Memphis and Houston. There's a lot of conversation that, rumors swirling around that Memphis maybe try to move up and tag maybe get a Donovan Clingan from UConn. Maybe Houston may try to move down. Houston has been in the news today. Do they try to get a Kevin Durant? Who knows what they're up to, right? Even Atlanta, like who knows if they're even sold on the number 1 pick? Maybe they try to move back. The Spurs have 2 picks at 4 and 8. Maybe the Spurs try to maneuver up the draft pick if they see somebody. The thing is, if there's somebody on your board that you really love, you're going to try to figure out how to move up. And so the Spurs have 4 and 8. I can see the Spurs being a player and teaming up with somebody with a Wemby. Maybe they want a Donovan Clingan and Wemby duo, Twin Tower situation in San Antonio. Who knows?
I'm so over Kevin Durant. I feel as though now he's a vagabond, man.
Yeah. That Phoenix situation, and we talked about it during the year and during the playoffs. There's no upward mobility for a Phoenix situation because Bradley Beal is not who he once was. He's overpaid. He's getting older. And Kevin Durant, as you know, talented, he's getting older too. And how much does he raise the ceiling of your team? Devin Booker, talented. But then again, there's limitations as well that we've seen. I just don't see Phoenix in the landscape of the younger Western Conference teams that now have playoff experience. Luka has experience now. the Thunder have experience now. Anthony Edwards in Minnesota, their experience. Oh, and Denver still has the Joker too. So
That's right.
where do you stack up? And Wemby's coming. The Grizzlies will be better. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. And your 76ers will be searching for answers.
Maybe they'll make a swing. Look, maybe they'll end up with Brandon Ingram by the end of the night. They trade that first-round pick, but Brandon Ingram cannot be the only deal. There has to be more movement. There has to.
But see, it evens out for you because come September, you're going to break my stones about the Giants because they're going to be horrible.
We're ready for training camp already. Saquon Barkley, first game back.
Disgraceful. That's a friggin' disgrace. Yeah, I by the way, I never wish harm to a player. I wish Saquon the best, but when he comes out on third down or he's banged up 7 weeks in, you didn't hear from me.
Wow. He's back where he belongs.
Listen, we had a sounder from the Giants training camp. It just came off the wire. Okay, wise guy. Since you want to keep picking on
hold on a second. I just said they are going to be bad.
I know
They're going to be really bad. Like I am going to be such unbearable on the air. And Jonathan knows I get miserable when the Giants lose. I can't take it.
I can't imagine having to watch Daniel Jones play quarterback every Sunday. Like how do you really do it? Like, trust me, I've seen some bad quarterback play. Like I've seen it. But Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Is the ink on the dry on the contract with Jonathan yet?
Yeah, it's already there.
It's official.
Yeah. Listen, I got to root for the kid. I got to root for him. It doesn't mean I think he's a great quarterback. It's just, it goes, listen, Tobias Harris, if I'm paying you that, here's the expectation. I'm giving you $160 million. You're making $40 friggin' million a year. Be healthy and produce. But he's not good enough to elevate the players around.
He's making $40 million, Daniel Jones?
Yeah.
A year? It's crazy when you hear it. Like, it's crazy when you actually hear it, Angel. Like, it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. You got to resort. You got to go down to Circle Once a Square and get his input on stuff.
It's all right. Listen, at least our fans won't be wearing brown bags this season.
Listen, I'll tell you right now, 4 wins for the Giants. I'm going on the record.
That's fair.
4. And if they beat the Eagles twice, I'll take it.
It's not happening, but wishful thinking.
I agree 100%. All right, my friend. I appreciate the time greatly. Enjoy the draft. Look forward to getting your content on Sports Radio 102.9 FM.
Yes,
indeed. Your brother with the pod and great insight as always, man. We'll recap next week. Always appreciate you, brother.
Oh yeah, enjoy the draft, y'all.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan.
No problem.
All right, there you have it, my guy, Jonathan Marshall. From
the
WMUR.
new host of Middays with Q. Yes, Jonathan Marshall.
Yeah. Hey, you can take over, man. Listen, there's nothing better. I told you, I don't even like to say he was my intern. Like, I don't even like that term. Like, he worked at the station, and you just try to help some of these young guys. The kid's talented. He was passionate, and he did the things that young people are not willing to do, and that's move
and work.
Take the crappy jobs in radio and TV and go down to Texas or go to Memphis and now back to Boston, bigger markets and bigger opportunities. They don't want to do that, man. Friggin' people roll out of bed and all of a sudden they want to make a YouTube channel. They want to create content. They want to know why it's taken a year to break into the business. Shut up. My God, grind it out, will you? All right. But we always appreciate him. I love that kid. All right. Quick timeout. We'll close it out on the other side.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Middays with Q. Here's Q.
There you go. All right, here, we can switch up if you want to.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at Rich Q on Q. And now, back to Q.
Here you go. Bumper guy.
We need to get a bumper. He has no idea how to pronounce names.
It could be worse.
That
Rich
was-
Q, I ain't know none of this.
That's so bad. I told you what I have to do sometimes when I'm calling the fights. If there's a really tough name, once in a while, I'll just call it by his first name.
So will I. Don't feel bad. I do the same thing. I had the lungs for Giannis. It was the same way. I was like, wait, what?
No, I'll never forget it. Somebody called. They're like, "Yeah, what the hell? Stop!" Like, I think I said the other guy was the referee, Gene Sterator. I think I called him like Gene Celestine.
It's tough though.
Bad job by me. Really, really bad. I mean, come on, doing this long enough, you got to be able to. And Jonathan's credit, he just allowed me to go. I'm like, yeah, wrist archer.
Yeah, no, keep moving. We're okay. We're good. By the way, Q's Cups merchandise will be up available on the store right after the show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When we get the cart set up, yeah,
absolutely. That's in the process amongst the laundry list of stuff that I got to do. The merchandise store will be available hopefully within the next hopefully within the next 2 weeks. The merch store will be up.
Nice. I love it. 727-858-6650. Got a couple minutes to play with. Great stuff from Jonathan Marshall. The draft certainly a crapshoot. We know that, and it is, man. If you get that franchise player, then yeah, everything's pretty much all right. But it doesn't work like that in the NBA. And same thing in the NFL. How many times have we sat there and said, this is the franchise quarterback? This is the guy. He's playing 16, well, now 17, but he's never going to miss a beat. Get him in there, elevate play. This is why these franchises go through head coaches, and this is why these franchises reshuffle quarterbacks all the time. We've all been there. We all thought it was the answer. He was the answer. They were the answer, and it doesn't necessarily pan out. I think in the NBA, you have a little more margin of error. I think in the NFL, when you miss on a quarterback, you are screwed.
Yeah.
You are screwed. And then you got to get the bridge quarterback. So, by the way, yesterday, brutal. Let me just mock myself for a minute when my guest is not doing it. But anyway, last night, Suarez shelled. Thank you very much. Tigers beat the Phils 0-1. Blue Jays beat the Red Sox. That would be 0-2. And then the third game, I believe, if I check my notes, I think I got bailed out. No, Braves and Cardinals were postponed. I think the Giants won. I know I went 0-3, so I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat it. So that's a bad little run. After 9-3, we are 1-5 out of our last 6 plays in baseball. So this is what I'll give you quickly as we wrap it up. I know the Diamondbacks, not a bad team at home, but the Twins always have decent pitching. That's why they always win on the road. They haven't named a starter yet tomorrow, but I'm actually going to lay the Twins. I think that number is going to be right around 110, 120, even though they don't have a starting pitcher. I think the Diamondbacks are in trouble this year. The inconsistency with their bats. So give me the Diamondbacks. The Phillies always have a difficult time against the Miami Marlins, but Wheeler's been pitching well. You can throw him in the NL Cy Young race. I like the Phillies tomorrow. And then the O's over the Rangers, Burns and that offense, Baltimore. So Baltimore at home, Philadelphia at home, and then you've got the Twins on the road. And a reminder, I'll be traveling tomorrow. Got the fights back in the saddle on Friday. Steve Gardner on baseball. Brandon Bell, we're going to try to lock him in NFL, but you'll still get Pete Shepard tomorrow, 7 to 10. I know Angel will re-air his show. I'm sure you'll re-air today's show, Mignana as well, with a lot of NFL draft coverage. So those are the baseball plays, Q's picks from my good friends over at Play It Again Sports. I gotta get some momentum going with these baseball picks, Angel, because I'm giving up, pertinent information here and trying to help some people put some shekels and coin in their pocket, and then all of a sudden they're sending me friggin' bills.
Yeah, well, and that's why I'm horrific when it comes to this stuff, and that's why I'm not a betting man, because unless just for some freakish reason I decide to go into betting for, do like 2 games, you'll guaranteed at least win one, maybe possibly if I do a 50-50.
Well, you get the juice on one of them and you put a little money in the pot. It's not is. I think baseball is hard. You to bet on or to pick. You got to grab the team. You have to almost get a sense of when you feel this team is either going to go on a run or go the opposite direction, right? And you never jump on the winning streak as it's in progress. I think the NFL, there's a lot more research involved because you're looking at, home and away, you're looking at splits, you're looking at lineups, you're looking at rosters, you're looking at coaching staffs, you're looking at points for, points against, weather, injuries, streakiness, division rivals. There's a lot. There are some games, though, where you just look at the game and you say, I feel very confident about this side. Like, I think we mentioned it last year when Martinez and company at the time, and I mentioned on BYP, you get into the playoffs, no one thought Miami had a chance in hell to go in Kansas City and beat Kansas City. Nobody did. And a lot of people thought that Dallas was going to roll over Green Bay, but a couple people who are pretty smart knew that Green Bay was going to be able to run the ball a little bit and expose that Dallas secondary. And that's exactly what they did. And they racked up 500 yards of offense, 40 something up points. So sometimes you do kind of get a feel, and other times you just happen to just go with your gut. I know people say you never do that, but I know some sharps that they'll look at games, and if they feel it in their gut, they bet it one way or the other. And if they're not feeling it, I have a segment during the football season where I call it look but don't touch. There are some games I'll look at, but I'm not going to touch them because I'm just not confident. I don't feel good about those games. And I think if you are in the sports betting space and you do it responsibly and you have a bankroll, then you have to actually approach it like that. Just because there's a game, you don't need to bet it. Whereas I know people that'll bet on, 2 cockroaches in the parking lot. We might get odds on over and under barks from Kiki during shows Monday to Friday. And if you notice today, silent.
Until the last minute.
No.
She's there?
Out.
Wow. What'd you give her?
Well, I mean, we've got 4 different Kong toys. We got bones, we got socks, we got treats, and then, had a little nice little extended playtime. She fiddled around with a male dog. We won't even get into that. I had to pull her to the side, and we have to have that conversation about the birds and the bees, and that tired out as well. So, yeah, she's so, hey, reminder, log on, Ion Tampa Bay. Check these guys out. It's a great partnership, breaking news. Give them a follow on Facebook, X, and also online. And as we mentioned, all the crop of shows here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town in conjunction with Broad Street South. You got Pete Shepard Monday to Friday, 7 to 10. Martinez and Company, 10 to 12. Myself, Middays with Q, 12 to 2. We got the Talking Hoops. We got Lloyd Vance. We got Jonathan Marshall and his brother coming on board. Marshall Time. We got a couple other shows in the pipeline. A substantial amount of content we are trying to provide for you guys in different genres, different markets, different sports. But we do know one thing. Once football rolls around, we are definitely going to dive deep into Jacksonville, Tampa, and Miami because his angel has said, quote, the coverage on these teams down in Florida sucks.
Yep. Sure does.
So with that being said, we always appreciate everyone chiming in. Appreciate the comments and the tweets and the comments on Facebook. As we wrap it up, little shortened version at 1:30, we'll get out of here. We've got some work to do, a little heavy lifting, so to speak. I'll be back in the saddle with you guys on Friday from 12 to 2. But as I mentioned, Pete Shepard, 7 to 10, Martinez and Company, 10 to 12, myself, Middays with Q. Appreciate everyone keeping us locked in. Appreciate the new audience as well from Ion TV. And of course, we are always coming at you exclusively on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. This was a Wednesday edition of Middays with Q. Rich Quinones, Angel Martinez behind the glass, keeping us on the air as always. Hope you guys have a good Sports Wednesday. Have a better evening, and we will talk to you on Friday. As always, hasta luego, buen día.